Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. A very warm welcome to everyone to yet another session of Conversations on Consciousness. Let us begin with a small prayer. Sarvatma sarvadrugyoso sarvadhyasa nirasakrit satatam sannidhattam me hridaye paramashivah shruti smriti purananam alayam karunalayam namami bhagavatpada shankaram lokashankaram. Today we have a very special guest, Swami Brahmabhutananda ji. Thank you so much, Swamiji, for accepting our invitation and joining us today. For the benefit of our viewers, I would like to introduce Swamiji. Swami Brahmabhutananda ji is a student of Pujya Swami Dayanand Saraswati ji of Arsha Vidya Gurukulam, where he studied Prasthanathri with Shankar Bhasya and Samskritam. He has been teaching Vedanta under Vedanta Vijnana Mandala Trust since 3 decades. Swamiji has also served the Sivanandashram Rishikesh with various responsibilities. Swamiji has visited United States of America and Bahamas to deliver lectures on Vedanta and its allied topics, and has given lectures on Bhagavad Gita through ATN channel, which was aired in 68 countries. Apart from this, Swamiji has also been engaged in social welfare activities, wherein he has provided medical aid to needy, economic aid to students, distribution of medicines, notebooks, textbooks, and much more. Swamiji, I welcome you once again. Thank you for joining. So before we begin, Swamiji has requested he would start with a prayer. Swamiji, please go ahead.
Om Shuklam Varadharam Vishnum Shashivarnam Chaturbhujam Prasannavadanam Dhyayet Sarva Vignopashantaye. Om Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyoma Vadvyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha. Tadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Om.
Thank you, Swamiji. To begin with, Swamiji, please tell us a bit about your upbringing and your initial influences on life and about your education.
About my upbringing and the initial influence. It was my great privilege that my father was my mentor. And at a very young age, he used to take me to the ashrams where bhajans go on and see to it that I participated. Unfortunately, I lost him at a very early age of 6 years. I was earlier, when my father was there, I was earlier staying in Calcutta. And Calcutta means Bailur Mutt Ramakrishna Mission. So he saw to it that we visited the holy temples, the Ganges Bank, and gave me an insight of this beautiful surroundings and about Sri Ramakrishna Paramahansa Dev. So that made a very lasting impression on my mind. Thereafter, after his demise, in a matter of 15 days, I was back in Bombay. And with God's grace, the new residence was at a stone's throw from Ramakrishna Mission. So my journey continued in association by every day going for the Aarti, and thereby I was in constant touch with Mahatmas. And as a child, one Mahatma, he coaxed me to clap my hands in tune with the music. And that way, I was led into the chanting of the Aarti and the bhajans. So much so that even earlier, before even the age of 6, my father encouraged me to learn to play the harmonium. But after his demise, when I came to Bombay, I could not continue. So there was a major role, and subsequently, staying close to the Ramakrishna mission, there was also a students' home there. So I used to mingle around with the hostel students there, and the Durga Puja festival always being something unique, where singers like Hemant Kumar, Jyotika Roy, Pankaj Malik, these people used to come, and there used to be dramas of Nachiketa, Mahabharat. All these things made a very lasting impression on my mind. I had my education thereafter in a convent education school where the atmosphere was different, but this background helped me. I used to do a course, postal course on the health from Voice of Prophecy, Pune. After the health lessons came the life of Jesus Christ, then Bible. And the last one that came, the question which was there said, are you willing to become a Christian? And I gave a vehement, no, I will never change my religion. That amount of confidence was there. Just to tell you a little, by my name given to me by another Mahatma was Janak. And this name is the cause for which I have come into the spiritual life. If that Janaka can be Videya Mukta, why not this? So that was such an impact. And slowly I started reading the small books of Vivekananda, Thus Spake Vivekananda, Thus Spake Ma, Thus Spake Ramakrishna Paramahansa, and the force of Vivekananda's words. They really pierced through me, and he became my ideal. That way, my formative years made a lot of difference in my life. In school, I used to participate in debating, in dramas, and therefore, with this background, it was an all-round development.
Swamiji,
By
yeah.
profession, I became a mechanical engineer, specialized in industrial engineering, thereafter did my management. After working for 15 years in the management field, there was another great change. I came into contact with the Divine Life Society, that is Sivanandashram. And the change was rapid thereafter. So these experiences definitely gave me a strong foundation. And with that, very lasting impressions. There are 3 Mahatmas who came in my life at the age of 6. Shri Ma Anandmayi, Nityanand Baba of Vajreshwari, and Ranchodasi Maharaj of Chitrakoot. I received their umpteen blessings. Ranchodasi Maharaj was our Kul Guru, and therefore the association was quite close. He lived up to the age of 750 years. So these things have been at the background, in initiating me into this life. Though all the time I wanted to become a doctor and serve the people, that was what I always wrote in the essays. What do you want to become? But taking a medical career was out of my means because there were no earning members. And I, from a very young age, from the very fourth or fifth standard in which I was, I started teaching the younger children and earning my fees. So that is the background that I had up to my education as a professional.
Wonderful, Swamiji. I think you had a wonderful journey altogether with blessings of great Mahatmas in your young age. And so when did you hear about Vedanta Shastra, and what made you to take up the study of it?
Here comes another turn. During that period of time, Swami Chinmayananji was roaring in Mumbai. And my college was on Chowpatty Bank. On the sea face, Swami Chinmayananji used to come and deliver lectures on the Bhagavad Gita. And that was an introduction to the Chinmaya mission and its action. And later on, one statement that Swami Chidananji asked when I asked him that I would like to study the scriptures, he said, if you want to get inspired, it is Swami Chinmayananji. But if you want to study in details in the Sanskrit language, then it is Swami Dayanandji. Of course, Swami Dayanandji was the disciple of Swami Chinmayananji. So that was the introduction to their magazines of Bal Vihara, Tapovan Prasad, etc. This was food for me. At the same time, the places where I worked, I happened to have people as my superior, and they used to be discussing Bhagavad Gita. So again there, it made me understand that Bhagavad Gita is something very, very sacred, very important. And to my good luck, my mother was not very much educated, but a very pious lady, both my parents. I used to be the first person to consume the meal and go to college. And my mother used to cook the meal chanting at least 12th and 15th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. So that prasad every day, it manifested in my whole system. And possibly that is why it did what it did. So in that case, Vedanta Shastra, Bhagavad Gita, I was hearing since quite a young child. And then as a consultant, when I used to move from place to place, depending on where my assignment was, there were one of my clients' mother whom I happened to meet. She used to go daily for satsang. That was in Ghatkopar, Vedanta Kutir. And I started joining them in the evening. I shifted my residence from Khar to Borivali, Kandivali, and that was close to Swami Kashikananji's ashram. Every day, I used to go to the temple there, make my offerings to Lord Shiva, and evening there used to be satsang of all such texts like Upanishad, Gita, Prakarana Granthas. So that's how the whole thing came in. And an opportunity came when there was an advertisement from the Divine Life Society, that is Sivanandashram Malad branch, that one Mataji from South Africa is coming and going to teach homeopathy in Suchak Hospital, and I joined that course. That was my entry into the Divine Life Society, Sivanandashram's Malad branch. And from there, There was no looking back. There were sadhana shibirs, which I participated in. And in one of the camps, a 3-day camp in Mumbai, I happened to meet Swami Chidananji Maharaj, the then president of the Divine Life Society, came into very close contacts with him. And over the next 5 years, from 80 to 85, I saw to it that Swami Chidananji Maharaj has an itinerary in Mumbai and at our Malad branch, and that's how I came very close to him. And in the meantime, 1986 to 1987 was the birth centenary year of Gurudev Swami Sivanandashram Maharaj, and I was totally engrossed in all that had to be done. We had several programs in Malad under the auspices of the centenary celebration of Pujya Gurudev. And just then, Kumbh Mela also was there at Haridwar. My first Kumbh Mela, and the first of even Divine Life Society. I was totally involved in every activity of it. That time, a decision was taken that I would give up all my secular connections and come to Sivanandashram permanently. I was to join the Prachar party, which was going all around India at Bombay. But just before that, Pujya Swami Chidananji Maharaj had blessed at that time in 1985 our project of starting a consultancy firm in the field of information technology. We were before time and therefore we were a failure. But however, that Swamiji told me, you set that project on foot and then come to the ashram. In the meantime, all the people who are in the Prachar party, they finished their tour, came back to Rishikesh and went back to their homes. And then I got an immediate call, please come here and take over the other activities. That was my entry into Sivanandashram. And for the next 2 years, it was all in that activity. And the prime thing there at that point of time was to restart the Yoga Vedanta Forest Academy, which used to hold courses during the time of Gurudev with all his disciples talking Vedanta in the Yoga Vedanta Forest Academy and distributing knowledge to all those who came to the ashram and also holding courses. Unfortunately, at that time, the Yoga Vedanta Forest Academy was not working. And it was my sole intention that I want to set it back, restart it with a program that we will train up brahmacharis in that course. And these brahmacharis would then be sent to different branches all over India to propagate the literature and Gurudev's message to all over India. Of course, Gurudev in 1950 had gone all over the country and to Ceylon in a whirlwind tour of just 2 months. He covered all these places. And when he had come to Bombay, the talk was at 5 o'clock. The hall was full at 2 and people were just flooding the streets down. And Gurudev, when he, after the talk, wanted to come down, had to come out of the back door because the crowd was colossal. Gurudev also had a recording done at All India Radio of bhajans. He also visited the Ville Parle ashram, Sannyas ashram, and a recording done there. And that time Chicago radio was there. Chicago radio, Motwani, and Sudha Malhotra, the playback singer, she was at their place. Bhajans were held. Gurudev had a very packed program And that's how all these things, my 2 years there, and during the program, at one time, Pujya Swami Chidanji Maharaj had given me individual responsibilities and had requested other members of the society, senior sadhus also, that I should be able to do whatever the assignment is given to me, that nobody should interfere in that. Having finished that, there was a hospital which was coming up in the birthplace of Sivanandji Maharaj, and I was deputed there. I worked there for 2 years as the trustee and the administrator. In the meantime, my study had already started in 1985 under the guidance of Sri Swami Brahmabhutananda in Mumbai by a regular program of his Bhagavad Gita teaching, which regularly I got into. Not only that, seeing my enthusiasm, Swami Brahmabhutananda assured me that I would get admission into Swami Dayanand was taking, where an ashram was coming up in Coimbatore. So all I went to Shivan was given to me by Swami Brahmabhutananda, and the guidance also for pre-preparation, because that ashram was still coming up. So 1987, it was already assured that I will be going there. Earlier to that, I had got admission into Chinmaya Mission. But then Swami Chidananji Maharaj said, first finish this and start the inpatients at the Pattamadai hospital, then only I will leave you for the studies there. And then I saw to it, with Gurudev's blessings, that we start the inpatients at Pattamadai hospital. By the time it was 1990 October, and the course was to start at Coimbatore. So I was now in the full stream of learning at the feet of Swami Dayanand Maharaj, a full Prasthanathri 3.5-year course with Sanskrit and Shankar Bhasya. So this is how I was led into the study of Prasthanathri.
Swamiji, that is just wonderful how these rare opportunities came at your end and you got to study this wonderful Vedanta Shastra. Swamiji, as you mentioned, you joined the full-time course at Swami Dayanand Saraswati ji's gurukulam to study Shankar Bhashyam of Prasthanathri and Samskrita. So what made you to start these studies at Dayananda Saraswati ji ashram? Was it based on Shuddhabodhananda ji's suggestions that you took up this? And how did it go about? And please tell us a bit about Swami Dayananda ji's teachings that you carry till today.
Swami Dayanand ji was with Swami Chinmayanand ji at the Sandipani ashram. Both Swami Dayanand ji and Swami Chinmayanand ji had taken the first course. The second course, where even Swami Shuddhabodhananda and other senior Mahatmas studied, that was taught exclusively by Swami Dayanand ji. Then Swami Dayanand ji was deputed to USA, where he started another Chinmaya West ashram, and he taught there. Subsequently, he wanted to have an institution also, so he shifted. In the meantime, he also built up another institution, Arsha Vidya Gurukula in Salisbury in USA. So while that course was going on and the ashram was going on there, the Coimbatore ashram was built. So it was Sri Swami Dayanand Maharaj who introduced Shankar Bhasya teaching during the Chinmaya Mission Sandipani course. And because he had spent a lot of time in Rishikesh, in Kailash Ashram, studying Shankar Bhasya from the Mahatmas there, those Mahatmas who teach in a traditional way. And one of them was also Tapovanji Maharaj, a great saint from Uttarkashi and a Jivan Mukta. So that is how Swami Dayanand Maharaj got into teaching of Shankar Bhasya, starting at Rishikesh, where he lived in a hut like all sadhus lived that time, and people from all around would come. So the beauty of the study of scriptures. Can you please again place your question? What would you want to ask me as far as Shastra is concerned?
Yes, as you joined Gurukulam at Swami Dayananda Ji's, so how did the study go about, and what are his key teachings that you carry till today?
For Vivek Chudamani says, Adhikaritvam is required to take on to the Shastra. Though I had stayed in the ashram, but many of the people were coming for the first time who had not stayed in the ashram. And Gurukula life calls for discipline. So we used to study Panini grammar, Prasthanathri, and also Prakarana Granthas. And the first 6 months was such a packed program because more than 250 people who were waiting for Swami Dayanand to start this course were there. So this was the first 6 months where Pujya Swamiji taught the texts, just not very deeply, but taking Shankar Bhasya into consideration, he had expounded all the such texts. After the 6 months, then the balance of us who had taken to a life of a recluse as brahmacharis or as sannyasis, we underwent a total study of, I don't remember the number of hours, but it was the balance 3 years. We studied Bhashya word by word of the 10 Upanishads on which Shankaracharya ji has written a commentary, Prakarana Granthas, Panchadashi of Vidyaranya Muni, Bhagavad Gita. With this and other Prakarana Granthas, Vivek Chudamani was there. We have even done Naishkarmya Siddhi there, Tattva Bodha, Upadesh Sara, just to name a few. So we underwent that full 3 years rigorous course where we were exposed to the teaching through the medium of Sanskrit and through every word of Shankar Bhasya, in which, just for the knowledge of the people who are listening, that Bhashya study is not very simple. It requires a lot of concentration because Acharya has brought about Purva Pakshas, all sorts of doubts which anybody would have in a person's mind, there were brought out and refuted. So that gave us an opportunity to understand where a person can make mistakes and can be misled. So we were cautioned at these places how the interpretation needs to be taken to, without which it would just be listening to something but not being able to again reply. After the 3-year course, we were all supposed to go out and teach, and therefore as acharyas, as teachers, we had to see that every question that anybody could raise, we should be able to answer that. And therefore it required for us to have an in-depth study with a lot of commitment. Now the question here also was that if a person wants to study the Shastra, it is not just the Shastra, but the Adhikaratum that is to come. And therefore, we had to take to doing karma. This is not ritual karma. Karma means with Ishwararpana Buddhi. So we had to take care of the ashram also in whatever other things, whatever physical needs we had. At the same time, there's a Dakshinamurti temple there. So morning, evening prayers, artis, abhisheka. So therein came chanting of stotras, etc. also. So we were also taught stotra and stotra chanting also. So that way also the question of karma and converting karma in yoga to yoga. That means, in short, if you have to explain, yoga buddhya karma kuru. So all karma that is being done there as an offering unto the Lord, and that is very much necessary. And upasana also. Each one had their own Ishta Devata, of which we were all doing whatever is required to be done by way of personal antakarana shuddhi, which is required. So all these were the steps leading to the Shravana, subsequently Manana and Nididhyasana. So the 3 years were packed with that total goal of achieving antakarana shuddhi and sampurna adhikaritvam. So one needs to equip himself totally, kaya, vacha, manasa, to be able to grasp this knowledge, which is aparoksha. But when we get into it, it is pratyaksha, paroksha. But to become able to come to that aparoksha, it requires lot of tapasya. And there, all our weaknesses, inhibitions, all come to the surface. Our personality comes to the surface, and it needs to be nullified. Then only we are able to grasp really the purport of the total Shastra, because it is not just the Shastra, it is being able to reach to the goal of assimilating this knowledge, putting it across, and living by that. That is most important.
Swamiji, that is just a wonderful journey that you have taken at the ashram through your studies. So Swamiji, moving ahead, we hear a lot about this particular word, that is consciousness. So what exactly is that consciousness that the Shruti, the Acharyas have been talking about? And why do we say that it is the true nature of oneself?
When you said, what is this consciousness? That word is what consciousness is. To explain, when we say this chair is, the chair is an object, but that isness is in and through everything. There is nothing which is outside consciousness. Constant, integrated awareness. Constant means it is there all the time. There is no time, no place where it is not present. Which means it is the very source of everything. When we say I'm aware of a thing, whether specifically it might be a book, it might be a recorder, it might be anything. But that isness, astitva, is what is consciousness. So if we take to the creation, when the creation came into being, There has got to be a source, inherent source prior to that. That inherent source is consciousness principle. It is awareness principle. Everything comes after that. Even when we are saying an arti, na tatra suryo bhati na chandra tarakam, nema vidyuto bhanti kutoyamatni, tameva bhantam anubhati sarvam, tasidam sarvamidum vibhati. It is only after this consciousness that everything else comes into our awareness. It is because of this awareness principle that you are aware of every other thing, including your own body. So when I say I am, that amness is consciousness. That can never go anywhere. That can never go anywhere. And what do we say? It is sarvavyapi. It is sarvagna. So if it is sarvavyapi and sarvagna, that means it is the only knowledge principle. Not getting the knowledge of something, but that because of which everything is. Sarvavyapi. Everywhere. There is no place where it is not. So suppose if you say, there is nothing, you are trying to say that there is nothing, but that isness, there is nothing. That nothing is, it is present, that is because of this consciousness principle. So this consciousness principle, if when I say I am, this is not understood by us, and when we say I am, we refer to I am this body mind sense complex. But really, when you say I am, means I am that awareness principle. So this total pursuit is what? In trying to understand that I am this awareness principle. This wrong notion that I am this body mind sense complex. We say I am this body mind sense complex, but then what do? We take that body mind sense complex to be I. That because of which I am able to even feel my body, understand my body, see my body, understand things, is because of this consciousness principle. Therefore, all our searching outside is we are off the mark in the opposite direction. What we need to search is I am, that is my real nature. That I am this consciousness principle. And therefore, I am Brahmasmi. I am Atma Brahma. Prajnanam Brahma. Tattvamasi. Tattvamasi tat jagat karanam Brahma. Tvam asi. That Brahma is this consciousness principle at the level of the samashti. And I am Atma Brahma. I am Atma. Atma. I am Atma with reference to this body. So that is the awareness principle, which means all the things that were acquired by way of degrees, all those things have got to be given up because they are only adhyastha on this consciousness principle. Everything that is there has its being because of this consciousness principle. So all knowing which is there is lit up by this consciousness. And that is me. And therefore, if I understand that that is me, and it is the wrong placing of the I on the things which are really adhyastha, there we are going off. And therefore, we have got to totally give up all our notions which we have been sticking to and understand this fact. And in trying to give it up, all our inhibitions do come up. So it's a difficult task. But without achieving that, there is no go. And hence, one needs to understand, that is, we have to give up all that we have acquired and superimpose on this consciousness principle. Then, this consciousness principle, if it is everything, then how come it is being covered? That covering is adhyasta. And where is that problem? The problem is in our mind. So once the mind is got rid of this notion, then slowly, in fact, we don't have to collect things, we have got to remove things. It is like a sculptor. The sculpture, the image is right there. What is the unwanted portion? When it is removed, the image emerges forth. So this is what that consciousness principle is. It is constant integrated awareness principle.
Thank you, Swamiji. It was just wonderful to listen to you. And why is Prasthanathri so important in study of Vedanta? And what makes Shankara's commentary on these so unique and important?
Prasthanathri means Shruti, Smriti, and Darshana. Now, this comprises, and this Prasthanathri is not only for Advaita. All the other philosophies also are involved in the study of Prasthanathri. But each of these philosophies or darshana, they have missed the goal. The reason being, their Bhashyakara in Bhagavad Gita, Shankar Bhasya, he says not that there were no commentaries on Bhagavad Gita or Upanishads earlier. They were there. But those commentators have missed the point. The point is what? Aham Brahmasmi. That I am that Brahma. I am that Atma. And therefore the total purport of writing the commentary, therefore in the Prathama Mallanyaya, Sankhyas who come very close to us, Vedanta, Acharya knocks off the Sankhya, and Sankhya come up to there, defeating all the other philosophies by his argument. So whatever arguments were there, he have thrown it off, and then Vedanta, Advaita, talks with the Sankhya and tells him where it is. Now Sankhya, Nirishwar Sankhya, Saishwar Sankhya. Saishwar Sankhya means where Ishwar is for the sake of creation as the creator principle. But ultimately, when we say the whole creation has come from Brahma, and see, Brahma is always present. If you say Brahma is always present, there no time that Brahman was not there. Then everything that comes is of Brahma only. Then all of us who have come down the line, we are Brahma only, but we do not know this fact, and therefore we take ourselves to be separate. So, what is there in the beginning? The creation which comes in, actually there is no real creation. It is like a dream. Then you will say that all that is false. Yes, it is false. It is an appearance. And that appearance is there due to a condition. But when those conditions are removed, it goes back to the original source. So there is creation, sustenance, and dissolution. And I don't use the word dissolution. I use the word resolution. So everything resolves into the cause. And the cause is there all the time. It as though comes out and although as though goes back. So it is like our dream that we in the waking, when we go into sleep, see, dream takes place after having gone into deep sleep. There is ardhavikasa. That is, that condition comes because of which you see things. And these are projected by our own vrittis, mind, whatever our thoughts. And once a person gets out of this sleep, then whatever might have been his dream, he does not go to search for the object of the dream because it was just an illusion. And the cause of that is the Lord's power, which we call by Maya. So Lord and Maya are not separate. Like if a pot is made, when you make the pot space comes along with that pot. You don't make a space then. The pot, as soon as the pot is made, pot space is there. So in this way, Prasthanathri, the Shruti Prasthana, the Smruti Prasthana, that is Bhagavad Gita, and the third Prasthana, where all logics and all answers are given, that is the Darshana. So all these, wherever there have been some points which have been brought up, these points are refuted, and whatever misconceptions are there are knocked out. And one needs to be able to have this understanding and acknowledge, yes, I made a mistake, and new knowledge which has come. Actually, there is no new knowledge. All old ignorance is just knocked off. And when that knocking off takes place, the reality is brought forth by itself. And we understand, oh, this is it. Now, the importance of Prasthanathri, because all acharyas have written their commentary on these Prasthanathris. First Prasthana, Shruti Prasthana, is Upanishads. Second, Gita and other Smriti Granthas. And the third, these Darshana, like Brahma Sutra, etc. So everybody has commented on the Brahma Sutra as per their Darshana. So they have got to defend it. Whatever theory they have of their own religion, or as far as Jainism, Buddhism is concerned, or as far as the Nayayikas, etc. Therefore, Prasthanathri is important. Now, therefore, Acharya, though there were commentaries earlier, has commented on this and brought out the flaws which are there by way of Purvapakshas. He brings out a Purvapaksha, which is just an imagination maybe, or somebody has that query. Even if the query is not there, he brings it up and refutes it to strengthen the knowledge that what has been taught by the Shruti, by the Shrutis. And therefore they are very important. And Shankaracharya ji has acknowledged in the Bhagavad Gita Prasthana also that there were commentaries. Even Gaudapadacharya was there. So that commentaries were there. But at some place, there has been a miss. Of all such misnotions prevailing in the country in the form of different religions or sampradayas.
Yeah, thank you, Swamiji. Thank you so much. And Swamiji, that leads to my next question, that is the scriptural study the only way to the truth that we seek and attain the knowledge, or there are any other means?
I will give you two examples, Ramana Maharshi and our scriptures. Now, the experience that Ramana Maharshi had, he had an experience. Subsequently, on listening to the Righu Gita, he said, this is what I'm talking about. So he had an experience. of whatever experience it might be. Generally what it is, Nir Atishaya Ananda is what everybody is seeking, right? And Nir Atishaya Ananda is with the person who's a Jivan Mukta. So he has experienced that. Okay, now the question is, what about Shruti? What is Shruti? That consciousness principle which we have been talking about, which is the prime source of everything. If knowledge about this is to be given, who can give it? Only the one who is Sarvagna. So that instead of, or even through an avatara, this knowledge can come from whom? Only the person who knows everything about the whole creation, about the principle itself. That principle itself only can distribute that knowledge. And that is what it is, that there were rishis who had undergone tapas and therefore had a Shuddha Antakarana, but they did not know the means. And therefore, mantra drashtaha is these rishis, they got the knowledge from the principle, consciousness principle. They understood that. Subsequently, over the years, they wrote that down, and it comes to us in writing form as Upanishad. Bhagavad Gita, one of the Prasthanathris, that is the Smriti Grantha, Vyasa, who is a Rishi, has got all this knowledge. He has written the Mahabharata. So all this knowledge was emerged out at the battlefield by way of a dialogue between Acharya, Sri Krishna, Jagat Guru, and Arjuna, representing all Jivatmas. Wherein all aspects of life that anybody has a question about, the answers are there in the dialogue. And Brahma Sutra, where all the darshana, whatever doubts they raise, then they are sorted out there. And therefore, Brahma Sutras were written by Ved Vyasji in order to, with all the knowledge that he had, to be able to explain all the difficult portions and the queries of different sampradayas, answer those questions with reference to Shruti and Smriti, taking that as the pramana. Pramana is the means of knowledge. Now, as you say, is Shastra the only means? What other means can there be? Oh, Ramana Maharshi had an experience, all right, but then he asked one of the disciples and a person known to him who knew the Shastras to please tell him what it is all about. And he went on corroborating everything. Okay, now his upadhi was already ready to be able to have that experience. So in order to prepare our upadhi, so the ignorance is in the form of mala, vikshepa, avarana. So mala has got to be removed. How is mala removed? As I mentioned in my talks in the ashram, what we were doing? By doing seva with Ishvara Arpana Buddhya, that I am doing this as an offering unto your feet, so that mama upata samasta durikta shedvara Shri Parmeshwara Prityartham aham karishye. What is it, Parmeshwara Prityartham? I am here, I want to get this knowledge. And therefore, all the raga, dvesha, like a sponge, when it is bereft of water, if you put it in water, it will absorb everything. But if it is blocked, then water will not be absorbed. Has got to be Shuddha to Mala. Then we had Vikships to gain concentration of the mind by doing Upasana to the Lord, whoever is your Ishta Devata, and invoking His grace in my endeavor to study the Shastras. And Avarana is knocked off at the time of Shravana when the Acharya is unfolding this knowledge. At that time, the doubt goes and you say, hey, got it. Hey, got it. So that is the conducive situation where it is able to act. So all these three, they are the means. But see, if you go into a temple, there are many ways to go to the temple. But to go to the deity situated in the temple premise, there is only one door. Other doors are there to lead to that place. But then entry is only through that one door. That is Shastra. And Shastra is the means. When studied at the feet of a Kshotriya and Brahmanishta, who is able to gauge the problem with his student or disciple and able to use the proper means to be able to knock off whatever inhibitions, whatever avrodha are there. And that's why the stay in a gurukula, along with the guru 24 hours, the guru is able to gauge where the problem with each of them is there and try to help him solve it. I'm saying try to help him solve it, guide to solve it. Ultimately, it depends on the person to undergo that and gain it. That is the life that one needs to live. Maybe in this birth, it might not be possible, but then we continue in the next birth from where we had left and see to it that a stage comes when we are able to gain that. And once having gained that, then there is no looking back. There is nothing left. You have understood that I am that principle. What do you want then? All the sorrow is because of wants, and wants which are in this realm of a world which really has no reality. No reality means what? That Brahman is the only reality. That is that which is always there in all three periods of time. And every happiness that comes without a object is our innate nature. All the cleansing done, our innate nature, abhivyakti, that means is revealed. So no inhibitions are left anymore. The upadhi is now so very conducive, not of a thing, but being what we are, it manifests. And nothing can stop that manifestation. And having known that I am this, everything, even all vishayas which are there, have no consequence for me because they are tuchha. What I'm undergoing is something so very wonderful that people start jumping in joy.
Swamiji, thank you so much for that wonderful clarification that you provided us. Swamiji, there is a misconception that Advaita does not have place for Bhakti. So what are your thoughts on this?
Advaita does not have place for
Bhakti.
Bhakti and karma.
Yes, Bhakti and karma.
See what I explained just now, that if you want to reach the pinnacle, then you have to have an antakarana which is conducive to be able to gain that knowledge. And as I said, karma done as an offering at the feet of the Lord becomes karma yoga. People say, I'm doing karma yoga. He is not doing karma yoga. He is doing karma yoga buddhya, which means samattvamiti uchyate, in a state of being not troubled by either what I have liking or what I have a dislike for. So, samattvamiti yoga uchyate, when Bhagavan says, he means that a state of equanimity. And once a person starts doing karma as an Ishvara Arpana Buddhya, slowly, he is not wanting the fruits of the karma, but he is only using it as a means of cleansing his mind, malanivrutti. And then bhakti. We are all people who have emotions, right? And then when you are able to transact with your Ishta Devata by way of upasana, invoking his grace in your endeavor for this highest ideal, keeping back everything else, that is the means, then how can we say that these have no place in Advaita? Simple. If you see a Shiva temple, there are steps, 5 steps. You go 5 steps, you come to the temple landing. On the left hand side, you have Ganpati, the Devata of all Vignaharta, at the same time of Jnanam. On the right, we have Hanumanji, the embodiment of Bhakti. And then you go in, again go down the steps with all your ego removed. But before you do all that, see the Nandi sitting there. He is not sitting, he is not just a vehicle, a Vahan for Bhagwan. He is sitting facing Bhagwan. And see his right leg is bent in are directly at the center of the statue, showing so much of concentration. He would be facing outside the door. That's how we park our car. But then he is there at the center. You go inside and then water dripping, tapasya that Shiva is undergoing. And if you don't have all these things, Maya sitting behind will catch you. Mother Parvati will catch you. If you have missed the Shivalinga there, then you are in Maya. So all these are the means, very essential. Without the means, you cannot come to the end. So they are essential, but they are not the direct givers. They are intermediary. But without which, your antakarana will not be shuddha, and therefore you will not be eligible to get that knowledge. So that is why preparation for anything is a must. And all of us have different inhibitions, different shortcomings, and we need to get rid of them. And once a person gets rid of him, his attachment, etc., is gone. His total concentration is on the goal. He, as a person, becomes a non-entity. And when he becomes a non-entity, then nothing is left. Then he and that Brahma, the objective goal, are nothing but consciousness principle alone.
That is just wonderfully put together, Swamiji. Thank you so much. And Swamiji, as I read through your bio, you have also delivered talks on Bhagavad Gita at a channel called ATN, and which was aired in 68 countries. That is just wonderful. And how did you manage to address such a wide range of audience?
The question is, they had channels in all those countries. And wherever people saw, they were mostly, I imagine, because I don't know, that the people who were there were our Indians who are there abroad. And in that country, even in Gulf countries, to get something about our culture and they were so very thrilled. I used to receive 30 letters a day. And mostly people would tell me, the elderly people, the younger people, that our elder parents are looking at this and they are asking to be aired in the local languages. That is our language, Indian languages, so that they can understand. Because that time I was airing them in English only. And They were sending it out to all the 68 countries which were there. And it had a good audience, very good audience. And therefore, I presented whatever I had to present to a layman in simple words so that they are able to connect. So my audience was India, people sitting in front of me. So in my class, I am talking, it is being recorded. So I am talking here, it's going there.
Okay, wonderful, Swamiji. Swamiji, we are almost towards the end of our interview session, and I would request you to give some suggestions to our seekers who are just starting out. What should they keep in their mind?
Seekers who are starting, first of all, they must study in some way or the other with a person who knows. Otherwise, wrong notions are very difficult to break. And once they're embedded, you will be rather argumentative, but not receiving. So all those who are starting, I'll tell you, when I started, I read one book, Chandrakant, written by Icharam Desai, and it described the journey of a soul, how he goes from there to there to there, and wherever he gets stuck in some place trying to take a fruit or trying to enjoy the scenery, the door closes and the person is left out. Others have gone away. One book of Papa Ramdas of Kanjangarh, In Quest of God, in the vision of God. In Quest of God is incredible. He describes what all happened to him. Whatever came to him, it was only Ram. Total surrender. Where the TC would catch them without ticket and make them go up and down, that also is Ram. And another place, a filthy place with all dirt, he had nowhere else to go, he was there, that also is Ram. So all situations, when we are able to accept, be emanating out, depending on my karmas, when I accept it. So when you accept anything that comes to you, the sting of that is gone. And when the sting of that is gone, everything which comes to you, you are able to accept without trying to fight with it. And once that happens, then slowly, our whole temperament undergoes a change. So whatever situation, whatever state of life you are in, let us accept what is coming to us as undergoing my actions, the results of my actions. Once you've undergone that, then nothing can bother you. Then the goal itself. That is why parivrajaka. That is why parivrajaka. And if that happens, you'll see anger is gone, fear is gone, whatever else, jealousy, etc. is gone. Then person is changing. Then what is required to be done? He is just required to say, this is it. He himself will come out.
Swamiji, thank you so much. Yes.
All the best to all those people on the path of seeking truth. My prayers for them. I pray to the Lord that Lord, please help them, give them conducive situation. Because I also received something like that. Because on my effort, as I said, only one thought came to me: if that Janaka is a Videhi, why not this Janaka? That was the change in my life.
Thank you so much, Swamiji, for joining us today and sharing these wonderful thoughts and knowledge. All our viewers will be really benefited after listening to you. Thank you so much, Swamiji.
Om Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Kayana Vacha Manasendriya Buddhyatmana Prakriti Swabhava. Karomi Yajna Sakalam Parasmai. Narayan Tismartha.
Viewers, with this, we conclude yet another session of Conversations on Consciousness. Please tune into our social media platforms. We will be soon announcing more events and classes. With this, we will conclude. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha.